All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We're gonna get started here. One of the most common questions we get at Atlassian, especially for our customers, is you've decided to extend your products, you wanna customize something, but where do you start? We have a ton of talks, there's a ton of decisions, but there's also a lot of crossroads. There's best practices you can take. So I'm excited for our developer advocate, Ralph, who's gonna come up on stage and share his years of experience, answer the questions that he answers for customers on a day-to-day basis, and help you choose wisely when extending your Atlassian products. Take it away, Ralph.
The most popular ways to extend an Atlassian product is through the marketplace. Well, when the marketplace can't provide the functionality you need, most developers look to extend the product themselves. Now, extending an Atlassian product can mean something different to each and every one of us sitting here today. It can range from something like building a simple script for automating a task to building an entire software company on top of an Atlassian product. Now let's take a look at 3 different ways to extend Atlassian products. Oop, too far. The first way is building an app. Now an app is a program developed with the intent to run inside the product UI. Now these could be simple things like providing a status update on a Jira ticket, to elaborate programs that provide analyze insights to your Jira project. Now, building an app is a great way to extend the product directly. It's like building a whole other feature right inside of Jira or Confluence. The apps can be shared for free, or you can charge for your app on the Atlassian Marketplace. You can also provide a private app that are only available to those you want to have access to. And many companies have been built because of the apps that they've created and listed on the Atlassian Marketplace. Now, an integration is a way to tie 2 systems together with the creative use of Atlassian REST APIs. Building an integration outside of Atlassian products is an easy way to provide more value to your users that are also customers of Atlassian. Now, a common use case of an integration is providing a button that can easily create a Jira issue right inside of your product. And now your users can stay right in your product as they won't need to navigate to Jira to create an issue. Now another common use case is the ability to create a new Confluence page or report with the data that you've collected right in your product. Again, without your users leaving to create the page. And finally, customization. Now, system admins or advanced power users can use the Atlassian REST APIs in a simple scripting language to build customized automation tools that allow them to be more efficient with Atlassian products. Now, for instance, let's take an example of a new employee that starts at your company. Now, that employee usually has a few to very many onboarding tasks when they start, which you are managing in Jira. Now, creating all those Jira issues manually can be time-consuming, and with a little scripting magic, that can be handled with ease. Now, each of these ways of extending Atlassian products takes you on a different development journey and require you to make some choices as you navigate each path. So as a developer advocate, I have countless conversations with developers and companies looking to extend Atlassian products. And to these developers, the choices are overwhelming and usually requires a conversation that gets them in the right path. Now, if you've visited our developer documentation site, you may have noticed that we don't necessarily separate out based on how you would want to extend our products. We have guides and reference manuals, and even getting started guides. However, we don't do the best job in guiding you in which path to choose. So in this talk, we'll walk you through the path together and discuss the options at each choice. Now, since we're short in time, we're going to scope this conversation in just Jira and Confluence. So as you start your development journey, you'll have 4 key decision points that you'll need to understand in order to choose wisely. You'll need to understand and decide the deployment option to develop against. Next, there are multiple product types. If so, which one are you targeting? Do you need to build an app, or will the REST APIs work for you? And if you're going to use the REST APIs, what's the best authentication method to make requests to the Atlassian product? So let's start by exploring the deployment options. As will be the case in each decision point, you must choose, but choose wisely. For both Jira and Confluence, there are 3 deployment options: cloud, server, and data center. Now, since server and data center are similar in this context, we're just going to consider cloud and server as the only 2 options for deployment in this talk. So let's compare the 2 deployment options. First, let's look at hosting. With server, the customer hosts the product on their infrastructure, whereas for cloud, Atlassian is hosting the product. Next, what are the available APIs? Well, with server, the server can use both Java APIs as well as REST APIs. In addition, the developer can have access to directly integrate with the product and utilize private APIs. Now, with cloud, developers are only able to access the REST APIs. What about connectivity? Now, with server, it's most likely that the server is behind a firewall with no or limited access to the internet, while cloud is fully connected. And so, by understanding how each deployment method is deployed, this can help influence the choice that you make. Next, let's take a look at how each deployment option differs and how you build an app. As I mentioned before, apps can extend the product UI. So it may not be a surprise that you can extend the UI in both server and cloud. However, the way you extend the UI differs. Now with server, you use the plugins 2 framework, and with cloud, you can use the Atlassian Connect framework. Both are vastly different in how you build an app. How do you run an app? Well, on server, the customer installs the app from the marketplace by downloading and installing a jar file, and it is ran directly into the hosted product. With cloud, the vendor hosts and operates the app on a server that they control, similar to a microservice. The installation of the app, again, goes through the marketplace, is done by reading a descriptor file that allows the product to understand how to communicate with the vendor-hosted app. No third-party code is run within the with the cloud product. Which programming language do you need to use? Well, with server, you need to write your code in Java, because that's what the product's written in. Whereas for cloud, you can use your preferred technology stack. And finally, supporting your app. With server, customers are running various versions of Atlassian products, and this means your app needs to support multiple versions as well. Now with cloud, you only need to support one version, and that is the version that is running on the Atlassian servers. Let's move on to the next decision point, product type. Again, you must choose, but choose wisely. Thankfully, this choice isn't as hard as the deployment option. The only product that has multiple types is Jira, Jira Core, Jira Software, Jira Service Desk. So you only need to determine which product type you want to target. And hopefully this is obvious to you. And if not, you may need to learn a little bit more about each product type and what they offer. One note about the APIs. Now Jira Core contains the core APIs for all the Jira product types. So if you target Jira Software, you'd utilize the APIs for Jira Core as well as the specific APIs for software. Similarly, for Jira Service Desk, you'd utilize the APIs for Jira Core and Jira Service Desk. Now this is the same as if you choose to build an app or just utilize the REST APIs. Speaking of app or API, that's our next decision point. And again, you must choose, but choose wisely. So let's compare the benefits of building an app versus just utilizing the REST APIs. The first consideration is the availability to distribute what you've built. Now with an app, you can easily list your app so that users can discover, try, install, and buy right in the marketplace. You can list your app as private or publicly for free or as a paid app that you charge for. Now with APIs, you wouldn't need to distribute, as you can integrate the calls to the API right in your product or service. and thus not needing it to list it in the marketplace. Although, Marketplace does allow you to list REST API-only apps. Next, let's look at how a user would set up an app or an API. Now, with an app, a user can easily install via the marketplace via simply clicking on the install button. All of the authorization is handled for you during installation. With APIs, an admin would need to set up and provide access tokens, or a user would provide their credentials to access the methods available through the REST APIs. There are differences in authentication and scope. With an app, you can define what level of access or scope the app has to the data in the Atlassian product. For instance, you can grant just read access, or you could grant admin access based on the needs of the app. Now, with APIs, they only have the same access as the user accessing those APIs. And finally, as I stated before, an app can extend the UI of the Atlassian product, such that you can analyze data from the Atlassian product and display those results right in the UI through a specifically located web view. Now, with APIs, you don't have access to the special web views in the product, and you can only update the data in the ticket itself. So any display of information will happen outside of the Atlassian product. Now, our last decision is only a decision if we've chosen to utilize the APIs. This is probably the most important choice, as again, you must choose, but choose wisely. So what are we choosing? We need to choose how to authenticate our requests to the Atlassian product. Now, our first option is simple basic authentication. Basic authentication is an authentication method where the user provides their credentials to access the REST APIs. So username and password. Although in cloud, you don't use a password, you need to request an API token with your Atlassian ID. So you would choose this method if you're a system admin or a power user building scripts to automate or make tasks easier to complete. Next to consider is OAuth 1OA. If you were building an integration, you would want to choose OAuth 1OA. With this option, you as a developer would not need to handle storing usernames and passwords. Instead, you would guide the admin of the Atlassian product to create a set of tokens and provide that to you. This allows you to store information that can't be easily compromised and allows the admin to revoke those credentials if the needs arise. One advantage with using APIs and OAuth 1OA is that this is available in both cloud and server. And many integrations are built to be cross-deployment with this choice. However, a word of caution. Although the APIs are similar in cloud and server today, we can't guarantee that the APIs won't diverge in the future. Something to consider if you're looking to build a cross-deployment integration. And finally, our newest option is OAuth 2 authenticated code grants, which we'll be talking about a lot more at AtlasCamp. And this is only available for general developer use and is currently only available in Jira Cloud. However, the benefits of this authentication type are through the ease of which a user can authenticate their Jira instance with your integration. So instead of copying and pasting tokens, they only need to provide consent to provide access. Now, this authentication type will vastly improve the customer experience in setting up an integration. Let's explore a few development scenarios and think about them from the key decisions we just went over. In our first scenario, you have a great idea for Jira and feel like other customers will get value from this idea you want to build. Now first, does this make sense for server, cloud, or both? Since we're dealing with Jira, what product type are we targeting? Jira Core, Jira Software, Jira Service Desk? And do we want to build an app or use the APIs? Now, in this case, we probably want to build an app. Based on our development choice, our deployment choice, that will dictate what programming language as well as what app framework to use to build our app. And based on the product type we choose, that will dictate the extension points that are available to us. So now that we know which path to choose, it makes our development journey much easier. The create an issue integration is probably the most popular way to integrate your service with Jira. Again, does this make sense for server, cloud, or both? And since we're dealing with Jira, what product type are we targeting? Again, Jira's Core, Jira Software, Jira Service Desk. Now, do we want to build an app or use the APIs? Now, since we're dealing outside of Atlassian product, we'll want to use the API. So which authentication method do we use? Well, we wouldn't want to use basic because we don't want to store usernames and passwords. So if we're only dealing with cloud, we could choose the new OAuth 2.0 authenticated code grants. If we're only using server, or we want to target both cloud and server, then the choice would be OAuth 108. Again, this helps us understand our development journey ahead of us. In our final scenario, what if you want to build a script to automate creating certain tasks? And for the sake of using Confluence, let's say we want to create a page that has all of the tasks outlined. Again, does this make sense for server, cloud, or both? We're not dealing with Jira, so we don't need to decide on a product type. Do we want to build an app, or do we want to use the APIs? Well, in this case, we could do both. You could build a private app that you could share with your coworkers, or you could use the APIs and just build a simple shell script to handle the task. Now, if we choose utilizing the APIs, which authentication method should we use? Well, since this is a script, that would be run by you or a trusted coworker, using basic authentication is probably the easiest path. Hopefully this talk is helpful in helping you start your development journey in extending Atlassian products, and allows you to more easily find the information you're looking for in our development docs. Thank you.